Well, hello there. My name is HW, and thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. My friends, today we're going to talk about fattening up your single coils. Fatten them. They're skinny. Make them fat. Yes, we're talking about fattening them up. So let's break down how we use the graphic EQ in the Kemper, and then we're going to talk about how we use this to fatten our single coils, and another little trick that goes along with this that is really the point of the video today. But here's how to fatten the single coils. Here's how to think about the graphic EQ. At 180 hertz, we're going to consider this the deepness of the sound. How much deep low end is there? At 160, we're going to consider how much bass is in our signal. 160 is really a nice, 140, 150, 160, really a nice area for bass on the guitar. We're not too low that the producer or the mix engineer is really going to cut us out of there, but we still got some nice low end to play around with. 320 is going to be our fullness. This is the frequency range which makes small kind of tweed amplifiers, think a Harvard or a Tweed Deluxe or something like that. It's not bassy, but those amps still sound full. Those small 110 amps, they have a lot of fullness. They have a lot of this character in it. 640 is going to be our low mids. This is a frequency range that's going to be able to cut through on the guitar and give it a lot of heft. This is kind of like a tube screamer. Think of that tube screamer honk that's sort of in there. There's a real sort of girthiness to these mids. At 1250, this is going to be our upper mid-range, our Marshall-esque mid-range. If you've ever used a plexi and turned the mids all the way up, you may have gone, whoa, did that just get brighter? That's these brighter, sort of higher mids. They're really useful for the guitar. They really can cut through, and they can give us a sound that is somehow both bright yet warm. 2500 is going to be our treble. This is, well, it's treble. It's some of those high frequencies. Ride this up too much and you're going to get some pretty harsh guitar sounds, but it can be very useful for sort of cutting through the mix. 5000, I consider this presence. Presence really takes the guitar in front of you or away. Working with this in conjunction with treble is going to give our guitars varying degrees of brightness. 10,000, we're going to consider this the airy part of our sound, and it's also very useful if we have a speaker system or maybe some monitors that are giving us sort of too much of a high-endy sound. You're going to be able to cut this on a digital amplifier and get a more natural tube amp type of tone in the room. Okay, now that we've covered those frequencies, let's talk about how we're using them to fatten up our Strat. Once again, here is my sound. I'm on this Strat right here with some custom shop dual mag pickups. I'm going through a 5E3 Deluxe profile. That's from an original 1957 5E3 Deluxe that I've got here. J4 means we're jumpered on the inputs, and 4, we're more than halfway up on the amp. We're a little bit more than that. So check it out. On my neck, it's going to sound nice and thick and big like this. On my bridge, the same sound is going to be brighter, more cutting, but still, it's a nice thick sound, but there's plenty of brightness. So the bridge of this Strat is not going to sound overly thin, but you can definitely tell it's a single coil in the bridge. Okay, so now let's fatten up those sounds. I like that sound. It's not overly thin. It's the sound of a small, thick, sort of tweedy amp. Let's turn on our graphic EQ and look at what we're doing here. So here we go. To fatten up this sound, we're going to cut some of the deeps. We don't really need the deeps. Don't need the deeps. We're going to cut some of the bass. Don't need the bass. Fatness, to me, is really about fullness and low mids. You're going to want to determine how you're going to make it not dark, whether that be treble or high mids. But really, for a fatness sound, for a fat sound out of single coils, you need to make up for the scooped nature of the pickups. So you're going to want to dial in some fatness like we've done here. I'm boosting my 320 or my fatness by 1.1. I'm boosting the low mids by 4.2 decibels. I've got my high mids going up by 4.5. So I'm really focused on the mid-range here. My treble, I'm actually still cutting because I want it to be a relatively warm sound, and I'm actually going to cut my presence, and I'm cutting 10,000 or the air a good amount. I want it to be a very punchy, little tweed, sort of almost lo-fi sound. And here's the important part. We're doing this after the amp section. After the amp section. Now, throwing that same sound on the bridge, you're going to hear all those mids are now so much fatter than they were before. Okay, obviously that's fatter and that's bigger, but there's another way to fatten up your guitar. That will definitely work. And in a way, that really is the sound of a post EQ on an amplifier. That's what a producer would really do to sort of get you to come out in the mix. But let's talk about another way to fatten up this sound. I have taken the same EQ block and I've actually put it before the amplifier. Now, let's turn that on. And now we have one EQ engaged, same EQ. I'm doing the exact same cuts, the exact same everything. Check it out. Cutting my deep, cutting my bass, boosting the fullness, boosting the low mids, boosting the high mids, cutting treble, cutting presence, cutting my air. Now, let's see how that sounds on the front pickup, the neck. Now the same thing on my bridge pickup. What? Are you that? Whoo, wait a minute. This is what's amazing about digital, right? You couldn't do this in the analog world very easily. I dialed in this EQ to work in the back of the amplifier, but by happy accident, those same frequencies, when pushing the front of the amplifier, make this guitar sound even fatter. I might not have even gotten the guitar that fat, that round, that warm, had I actually tried to dial it in that way. But just as easy as copy and pasting on the Kemper, which you can do just by holding this button down, hold down, boom, copy effect. You can copy it, you can go back, do the same thing, hold it down. Just by this, we stumbled upon this happy accident that all of these mids in the front almost have an overdrive-like quality. Listen to my Strat with nothing on it again as an A-B comparison here. Now with all those extra mids. That is incredibly warm, thick, but it's still stratty. That is the sort of syrupy, rich, neck, kind of SRV John Mayer, speak to me, tell me what's wrong in the world and how to fix it kind of tone. That's the in-between. Here's back on the neck. how thick and rich that feels under the fingers. In between the sort of the favorite Strat position, the 2 position, bridge and middle. Oh man, that is a tone, man. That is a uniquely like mid-rangey, squawky tone, but that's what happens when you take thinner pickups. Let's go to the least mid sound possible, and then let's just throw the mids in, plow them in, throw them in your face in the mix. Wow, you thought I was going to throw Goldie at you. I wasn't. That's what's happening though. We're throwing so much mid-range content at the front of this amplifier, the front of this profile. I mean, it'll kill. You could hurt somebody. Careful. Be careful. Use caution. This is a lesson. This is really a lesson in a concept called pre and post gain EQ. And it's how doing the same thing in front of a gain stage and after gain stage has way different results, because instead of just boosting the mid-range of the amplifier sound, we're now adding mid-range in before amplification, before gainification. That's right, gainification. That's a word now. Gainification before EQification. You get what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense. Before the amp applies its EQ, which it gets from gain and the uneven amplification of different frequencies, that's the amp's EQ. Some frequencies are going to be boosted higher than others. Others are going to be compressed or limited depending on the amplifier circuitry. All this craziness is going to happen. But we're going to get amplification, gainification, EQification. You get what I'm saying? That is the magic of amplifiers. Now, none of these are technical terms that you're going to find in the dictionary, but trust me, they're very real, okay? So, cramming all that mid-range in front is way different than pulling all that mid-range out in the back end. And that is a lesson for us. That is really a lesson on how to make our single coil guitars really big and fat. We can do it pre-amp, post-amp. But what's going to happen pre-amp is we're going to get now a lot more compression and push out of all those mid-range frequencies. So if you want a more cutting sound, I would recommend going in the back. We can then carve out some of these, especially the high mids, and really make a nice, narrow cutting sound. This is why tube screamers before or after another gain stage are so profound. I'll have to do a video on that soon. Put a tube screamer as a boost after your main drive or before your main drive. See what I'm talking about. The level of compression and everything changes. We're dealing with an ultra compressed mid-rangey sound because I'm slamming the front of this amplifier. It's incredible, and it's today's tone secret from Tone Junkie. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, like, subscribe, I appreciate it. Try this out yourself. I'll make this downloadable so you can just try this. You can actually feel it, hear it, and I'm going to leave it with the EQs off, and I'm going to save that right here. I'm going to save it actually. I'll call it Deluxe Fat. And you'll know that you've got to turn but one of these on to really make it fat. But I want you to try this with your guitar, with your Tele, with your Strat, with your brighter humbucker, your Lambertones, Ristretto, Crema, your P90s. You're going to see what I'm talking about. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been a good look at how to fatten up your Strat, your single coil. Leave me comments below. What'd you think? Pre, post, what are you going to use? I have been HW. Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. HW!